everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the Demolition podcast with Axe and Smash. I'm your host, Ryan Maher. This is episode number 2, and we are right around the corner from WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas. And right now, wrestling is hot. It is reaching some unprecedented heights. But are they really unprecedented? Because we are here with Axe and Smash. They were there during the golden age of professional wrestling, and they participated in 3 WrestleManias as a Demolition tag team. And there was actually one other WrestleMania that was a version of Demolition, if you will. But right now, this week, I wanted to be joined by the men themselves, Axe and Smash, and get their thoughts on what it's like to participate in WrestleMania. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, way to go, Ryan. Good first show. Now we're on our second, right?
Yeah, and we're all wearing the same clothes, you know?
So what does that mean?
Yeah, well, it means that it's continuity, and we want people to... now for every
means it cuts down on travel.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, it's like the old day, you had to wash your trunks in the sink and everything because you were gone so much. That was what we did with the shirts, then put them back on again.
And before we even get into WrestleMania, I mean, right there, you just raised an excellent point, because I've heard stories about those TV tapings in Allentown or in Poughkeepsie, and you guys would go out in the face paint and have to wrestle and then come back. And what would you have to do? Just apply all that face paint again to get back out there for the next week's tapings?
Oh, yeah. Touch-ups and do what you got to do to make the next show.
Yeah, the hardest part, though, is, you know, you wrestle 2 or 3 times in a night, and you go back to your hotel or whatever at midnight. You know you got to get up at 4 o'clock, but still you got to wash your trunks and everything and your knee pads and all that. So the next day when you get in the ring, the guys don't, you know, kick you out of the ring for stinking too much. So that was kind of tough.
That was very kind of you, because I've heard some stories that over the years, some guys did not partake in that hygienic practice. So it's good to know that you guys were very considerate of your fellow colleagues. But we are heading into WrestleMania 41. And I feel like you guys being a part of the golden age of professional wrestling, being top guys in the WWE, of course, then WWF, from 1987 to 1990, you guys were major players in each WrestleMania that you were a part of together. I mean, we're not talking about, oh, all right, they had their WrestleMania moment. I mean, you guys were major parts of the show. And of course, the first one was WrestleMania IV, and a match that still gets talked about amongst diehard wrestling fans to this day. And actually, some young up-and-coming wrestlers tell me that they still to this day study this specific match. And of course, we're talking about Axe and Smash as the challengers going against the WWE World Tag Team Champions. What an incredible team. Rick Martel and Tito Santana, Strike Force. Now, you guys were coming off an incredible year going into this match. What was going through your heads?
Well, it was exciting because, you know, that was the first one that we were actually involved in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a big production, of course. And you want to put your best foot forward, but it's very easy to do when you're working against Martel and Tito. I mean, you're not going to have a bad match. I don't think either one of us thought that the match wasn't going to be good. But we just wanted to make the presentation as good as we could possibly do. So with those two guys, it's hard to fail.
Yeah.
No, but is there, going into this, I mean, you guys are working the house shows constantly. You're on the road 300 days a year. Are there aspects of that WrestleMania match that kind of get worked out in the ring? Are you guys in Hershey, Pennsylvania one night at a house show? Things are going on and you go, ooh, that was pretty cool. I like that. Let's put that in the WrestleMania match. Barry, how does that work?
Well, you know, it is kind of like that. But, you know, if we go way back, you know, like, 6-8 months before WrestleMania, when Bill and I, you know, first got together as a Demolition, you know, we're in a territory where it's the greatest tag teams of all time, all there. Absolutely. I mean, every single tag team could have been the champion. That's how good the territory was. So when Bill and I got together, it's almost like when we started working with guys, they didn't want to put us over. We didn't want to put them over because we needed to be strong. They wanted to stay strong. So it took a while before everybody trusted Bill and I to have a good match.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way the business is you want to be the strongest guy out there. But our thought wasn't that. Our thought was to have the greatest matches with every single person that we wrestled and do it in a way that the word would get out that everybody wanted to work with us. Right, Bill? That's kind of how it started.
Yeah, I agree. I think that our objective was to have the best match on the card. And not blowing smoke up our own butt, but I think the majority of the times we did have the best match on the card.
Well, and if you look at that WrestleMania IV specifically, that was the title tournament. The WWE World Championship was vacated, and they had the championship tournament that went on throughout the show. So, I personally have not always been a fan of those single night tournaments in wrestling. I mean, there are examples of where they're done well. That WrestleMania IV was one, but you guys were a marquee attraction on your own. I mean, as baby faces, Strike Force was red hot. They had the Girls in Car music video.
Oh, yeah.
And now here you guys are the monster heels. And what I find so impressive about that match is that finish where, you guys were badasses and you could beat people up, but you still had a cheat to win. And
well, we really didn't cheat. We just bent the rule a little bit.
There you go.
Right. But and then so leading up to that, now all the teams kind of wanted to work with us. And that's when we got the chance to work with those guys, because now we're real heels, and you got these guys, these handsome guys that all the girls love and everything, and it was like a perfect match for Axe and Smash to go against these guys. And of course, Fuji had to rib us that night too.
Oh, do tell.
Oh yeah, so we were gonna hit him, hit him in the back with the cane for a finish. Well, he went and bought a really green cane that didn't snap; it just bent. So when Bill came in to give him the finish, he really hit Martel, and Martel, I could hear him go, right, Bill?
Yeah, it almost broke his back.
I love that you added that, because the reason I had stated that there are a lot of young wrestlers today that say they've studied that match is because their trainers have told them, look at the way they executed this. It was a perfect sneaky heel maneuver, and look how Rick Martel sold. And not to
he had to.
He had to.
I had no idea that Fuji did that. That's interesting. That explains.
Fuji didn't rib us very often, but those little subtle ribs, that was a good one,
Yeah, I got to know going in, finding out that you're going to be wrestling those guys at WrestleMania IV, winning the tag team championships. Because when I think of the WWE World Tag Team Championships, back to Barry's point, we call it the golden age of professional wrestling, but that's not just a moniker. I mean, when you look at the tag teams that existed in that era, you got the British Bulldogs, Strike Force, the Hart Foundation, the Rougeaus, the Killer Bees. I mean, it is the most loaded roster, in my opinion, in all of professional wrestling history as it pertains to tag teams. And when you think of those old school WWE World Tag Team Championship belts, there's a few teams that come to mind, but they're synonymous with you. In that era, winning the championship meant something because they were depending on you guys to draw the house, bring people in. What was it like to find out you were going to be winning the titles on such a huge stage?
Well, it was exciting, and it meant that they were going to put a footnote behind us, because that was sort of like the payoff of being able to produce and put butts in a seat.
Mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned, all the great tag teams, there were so many good tag teams there that any one of them, I'm talking about any one of them, could have been the champion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they respected us. I think that the opponents knew that we were going to have a good match. We weren't going to try to snuff them out. We were going to try to have the best match, if possible, on the card that night. That meant that we were going to make money because we were going to have more matches. So the more times you work with them, the better the matches become.
Yeah, and I think because we had such good matches with everybody, and most of the teams there were babyface teams, and we were the big heel team. it was almost like they had to put us against the champions.
Mm-hmm.
And for us to get the belts and then to be able to work with all of those tag teams because we had the belts, it made sense. And I thought it was a really good move, and not just because we got the belt, but just looking at business wise. Because we did have matches, the best matches with everybody, I thought.
Well, we could work with the big guys. We could work with the small guys. We could work with, normal size individuals. The objective, like we keep saying, was to have the best match
On the
for
show.
all four of us in there.
And I love that you noted that you guys could work with all different size guys, because there's a lot that happened between WrestleMania 4 and 5. And on future episodes of the podcast, we're going to break all of that down for everybody. So start having those questions come in, because there's a big jump about what happens with the careers of Demolition between WrestleManias 4 and 5. But now you go back to the same venue, the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City, Boardwalk Hall, but it was being sponsored by a future president of the United States. Mm-hmm. And now here you are a year later. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like to be in Atlantic City for those two WrestleManias? Because this was real big pomp and circumstance. This was the rise of Donald Trump as the Playboy real estate investor on all the talk shows, the news. What was it like as far as atmosphere in Atlantic City for those two WrestleMania weekends?
Well, for me, it was a big change, because when I was in college, I had visited Atlantic City before the boom and all the casinos came in. So it wasn't a very pleasant experience at that time. But
the argument can be made that it's not now as well. But continue.
I heard that. That's sad to hear.
It is.
But very exciting. We had our families with us. They had a good time. My uncle and my aunt came down because it was not only big gambling area, there was a Super Bowl of wrestling.
Absolutely.
So they attended, and all the excitement in the fans. It was neat to be in.
Now I have to. I'm sorry, Barry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the whole year, back then there's only 2 or 3 pay-per-views. So the whole year, you just can't wait for WrestleMania. And then when you have one of the main matches there, I mean, that's a real big thing. And, the fans everywhere, knows who we are, and they were just great fans. So it was quite the experience.
I was going to ask if you guys were able to be a little bit more incognito than perhaps some of the other talents on the roster at that time, because of the fact that you came to the ring with the masks. And then when you took the masks off, you had such intricate face paint. Are you guys able back in those days to float around towns a little bit easier than per se maybe Jake the Snake Roberts or Ravishing Rick Rude, or guys who are instantly recognizable? Are you able to hide a little bit better, or did everybody
to a degree? But anytime we were seen close to Fuji, then they put 2 and 2 together. But it was. But the fans, I don't recall. Barry might, but I don't recall any instance where we had issues with any of the fans. I think they respected us.
Well, also they didn't have a death wish. I mean,
that might have been. But I mean, there's a lot of unruly people out there, but we never had an incident with anybody.
That was really nice to have, because if we were around Fuji, they knew who we are, but they respected you. Mm-hmm. And it was different in other territories. They wanted to kill you, and they actually did. They were so stupid that they'd want to fight you, But up there, it became entertainment now.
Yeah.
So even when you were a heel and a bad guy, they respected you, because they, it was a different situation then,
So you go from winning the tag team championships, and again, we're not going to gloss over that incredible year, that run that you guys had. But now we go into WrestleMania 5. The double turn had taken place a few months prior at Survivor Series. Mr. Fuji turns his back on Demolition, goes off with the Powers of Pain. And so now we have a tag team championship match that's 3-on-2, a handicap match with the Powers of Pain and Mr. Fuji against the now babyface Demolition coming in a year later. I can only imagine the fun that was had in talking that match out, planning what you were going to do. I would love for you guys to elaborate a little more on how that came to be, to add Mr. Fuji to the mix.
No, where was that at? What building was that one at?
That was also in Atlantic City at WrestleMania V.
I think what comes to mind when Barry said he could he could lift almost anybody in the territory,
Oh boy,
with the exception of Andre. we have to add Fuji, because I think Fuji probably was what, 270, but when you tried to pick him up, he made himself stiff as a board. He came out to be about 370.
I could have slammed Bundy 10 times for the same amount of weight that Fuji was.
Wow.
You know, so when we were talking about that match, you know, the Powers of Pain are two of the nicest guys you could even be around.
Yeah, they're great.
And Fuji, you know, it was just a lot of fun, you know, being with your friends out there and everything. But yeah, when it came time to give Fuji the finish, he was like straight out as a board, and he didn't help at all. It was just, you know, and then he was on my knee straight out, so his legs were way out. So I mean, I had to hold on to him. And then when Bill came down to hit him, he went straight over. He didn't bend his knees or anything, and it was lucky both of us didn't get killed doing that finish. You know, because you know, it's all the weight on my knee. But then Bill has all the weight on his hip. So if it doesn't go smooth, then it's like pulling teeth.
But it was easy. It was easy during the match because Fuji, very sinister person again. He's hiding and ducking and trying to escape. But you could hear the fans. They wanted us to get our hands on Fuji the Stooge.
Absolutely. Yeah. Of course, Fuji the Stooge was what you came up with after that turn. And it really was exciting because I couldn't think of, and I'm sure it's happened at other points in wrestling history, but again, I was a young kid when this match took place. Usually, if you wanted to see the dastardly manager get his comeuppance, it was, you know, 5 minutes alone at the end of the match, or maybe you'd be able to grab him and do something to him. But to actually have Mr. Fuji as a competitor in this match, is it safe to assume that having him take the finish is also thinking along the booking lines of, okay, well, now we can keep this going with the Powers of Pain because, you know, none of them are taking the pinfall. We're going to have Mr. Fuji do it.
Probably. We didn't think of it at the time, but I think it fit the scenario because he had just made the sinister turn and betrayed us. So the fans really wanted us to get back at him.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of a rib on Fuji a little bit because Vince probably thought, you know, they're in the booking committee and it's like, how are we going to come up with this finish? And Vince probably says, oh, we got to get Fuji in that finish. We got to flip him over, you know. But, you know, it was kind of hard, though, losing Fuji as a manager because, you know, we traveled together everywhere.
Yeah.
And we went to every Chinese restaurant, Japanese restaurant. You know, that's what we did every day for a couple of years. So it was a little different not having Fuji with us then.
Yeah. I can only imagine, too, the stories, and I'm sure eventually we're going to have an episode dedicated just to Mr. Fuji stories, the ones that we're allowed to tell. But like you said, it was losing a third of the team, right? Because he acted like a true manager would, as far as I understand from what you guys have told me, right? Like he handled finding restaurants for you guys, handling some reservations and things along. And now, you know, a third of that team is gone. So that had to be an adjustment. But at the time, you guys were just so over as baby faces. It had to be done.
I think the biggest part, Fuji would be constructive in his criticism. He would watch the matches like we had mentioned before on a previous episode about Valiant, preoccupied with Valiant. Well, Fuji was preoccupied with the Demolition and how we were acting and how we were wrestling. So he would watch, and as we're traveling that night or the next day, he'd talk over the match, tell us what we should do, emphasize what we possibly could delete, what we could work on. So he was working towards bettering the match each night.
Acting like a true manager should. And then, of course, another epic year passes by, and all of it will be covered on future episodes of this podcast. But that takes us to WrestleMania VI, the Toronto Sky Dome, arguably the biggest WrestleMania at that time. Main event, Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior, title for title. But we have another tag team championship match. And this time, Demolition finds themselves in a similar situation as they were in WrestleMania IV. They are the challengers, and they are taking on the Colossal Connection, Andre the Giant and Haku, the tag team champions, managed by one Bobby the Brain Heenan, who, in my opinion, is the greatest all-around performer in the history of professional wrestling. And you have him managing Andre the Giant, a mythical figure in professional wrestling, a man who was a good friend to the both of you. And I can't wait till we have a full Andre the Giant episode. But I want to ask you guys specifically, because you both had very close relationships with him, especially Axe. Did you guys know going into this match that this was most likely going to be Andre the Giant's last match on American television?
I had no idea. I had, you get so used to having Andre around, and he's such an iconic figure that I didn't foresee that being his last match at all.
Mm-hmm.
And he never said nothing to us either that it was his last match. I don't think he wanted anybody to know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've always heard the stories. I mean, he's such a stoic figure in the professional wrestling industry. And as we've discussed this on the past virtual signings that we did through 80s Wrestling Con, he surpasses that. He's on like a Mount Rushmore. People that don't know anything about professional wrestling know of Andre the Giant. And I was just curious because at that point, WrestleMania VI going in, I mean, you're both veterans, you're on top. Andre the Giant still calls the shots, though, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Oh, yeah.
To a degree, yeah. But I mean, he trusted us. I'd worked with Andre for many, many, many years before that. And he trusted both of us. And I think we could have, we called the things that there again, we never called things just to make us look good.
Of course.
We called things that we thought the match was going to benefit from. So he knew that as well.
You know, when we're two big, tough guys, and we're kind of monsters to people out there too. I mean, with our size.
Absolutely.
But when you look at Andre the Giant, and if we're ever going to really take bumps for somebody, that's the guy to take the bumps for. So when he hit us, I mean, we sold it more than anybody. And I think he really loved that too, Bill, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. I think he was to the point. I think he knew he had a premonition that he wasn't going to be around very long. And I had sensed that a couple years before that. But I think that he was aware that his health wasn't the best.
Mm-hmm.
But he never let anybody else know. I don't think he never let us know. I don't recall anybody ever saying, "Oh, he told me this, he told me that."
Is
like
there
you
ever?
said, he stayed by himself.
Is there ever any inclination from the office? Is there ever any hints? I mean, obviously you have close friendships with Andre the Giant, but you're going into this match. Is there anybody, whether it be Vince McMahon or an agent, that pulls one or both of you aside and says, listen, you know, you got this program coming up with Andre. It is WrestleMania. It's the Sky Dome. You know, it's the biggest WrestleMania of all time up to that moment. Do they ever pull you aside and say, all right, this is what we would like to see happen, or do they just leave it entirely up to you guys to put the match together and go out and deliver?
Yeah, they never told us. Yeah. We come up with the ideas and stuff. And to be honest with you, I knew Andre was going over to Japan after the event. So I think if he would have told anybody, he would have told us.
Yeah.
But
yeah, he you know, when we're all together and we just mention a couple of things that we're going to do in the ring, you know, he listened to us and did what we wanted to do, and most of it we just did it right in the ring. And he put us over like $1 million too.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I mean, and he just don't do that for anybody either. So it was, I tell you, going into that match, that was one that you'll never forget because of the crowd. And, to me, that was one of my favorite matches because, Haku was one of our best friends too, and Andre, and you're working with these guys and they're dropping the titles to us.
Yeah.
And it was, it was incredible.
I love that you mentioned your friendship with Haku because that was one of the first things that I noticed about both of you gentlemen when I first met you at that convention. I want to say that was either 2017 or 2018 when I first met you. So we're going back a few years, but it had been a while since you guys had run into Haku. And I loved seeing the connection when you guys got together. And it was just so genuine and so cool. And then I got to work with Haku a few years later through Tommy Fierro's 80s Wrestling Con virtual signings. And I'm not going to lie, I was a little intimidated because I can be a bit of a wise ass and I'm going to be sitting down for 3 hours live. And every story you hear about Haku is how this man is capable of killing you with his bare hands. And so I was a little intimidated, but he was the nicest guy in the world. Jovial, funny, absolutely hysterical, which again, just leads me to believe that the fun you guys must have all had putting that match together and that whole program, it had to be incredible.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to work with all those guys. And I think you realize, being around a little bit, the guys that tell you how tough they are, they're really not that tough. It's the guys that sit over there quietly in the corner. Those are the guys you have to worry about.
Absolutely. And we're going to do so much more in the future as it pertains to talking about Andre the Giant. And like I said, I mean, it's almost weird to be glossing over the primes of your careers by focusing just on the WrestleMania matches. But I want to know, was there a big difference in your expectations coming from Atlantic City, WrestleManias 4 and 5, to now you're in the Sky Dome in Toronto? And it's kind of weird because those Atlantic City WrestleManias are sandwiched in between WrestleMania 3, which was Pontiac Silverdome. Now we're on a smaller scale for 2 years, and now we're going back to a big arena. Is there anything that you guys are getting from the office or even just internally where you're like, wow, this is a big deal. This is something huge?
Well, I always thought that, and Barry probably thinks the same thing, the bigger the crowd, the easier the night is, because the crowd feeds off of itself. It's difficult sometimes to go to a small building and get control of the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
But the buzz in the arena, the atmosphere in the arena, and the fans themselves, and then when the matches start, it sort of ignites the fire.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes off on its own. I always had a better time enjoying large crowds because you can only focus 4 or 5 ringside seats anyway. You can't see way up in the peanut gallery, but they can feed, and the volume of the intensity grows.
Yeah.
The craziest thing though is when you're in an arena that's sold out, like the Trump Plaza, when you slam somebody, the people go ooh right away. But you get like in the Sky Dome, you slam somebody, the people right around the ring go ooh, but then you can hear oohs for about 10 seconds as the crowd. You know what I mean? It's just
yeah.
So you kind of got to work a little different in front of the big crowd, Otherwise, you're ahead of them,
Yeah, I know. And you guys mentioned that you guys had the benefit of the dome being closed. What you hear from a lot of the talent nowadays is that WrestleMania and these big stadiums with the, just open air, that sound doesn't travel back down. It just goes up and never comes back. So that's an interesting little twist that these guys have to contend with nowadays. But like you said, that is an interesting point. The pacing of a match, I would imagine, is much different, knowing that you have to wait for that sound to come back to you.
Well, you got to get the reaction to people.
Mm-hmm.
You have to control not only the volume, but you have to control what's going on in the ring. So you have to let them get inside the ring mentally, inside the action, so they're part of it. So it falls back on psychology.
Now, do you remember at any point, I would imagine, because Toronto, huge market, the Sky Dome, I don't know if there were fan fests back then. I believe the first one may have been WrestleMania 9 or 10. Are you guys doing a lot of press going into these WrestleManias 4, 5, and 6? Are you sitting down doing radios, local TV? I would imagine that your whole weekend is pretty much locked up in promotion for the event.
Well, at that time, I don't think we did. I don't think there were any fan fest, especially for the heels,
Mm-hmm.
bad guys. There may have been some appearances for, people like Hogan and stuff like that, but there wasn't much interaction between us and the fans. And even when we made the switch, it's not like it is now. It's a 4 or 5 day event.
Yeah.
Look at WrestleMania's 2 days of activity itself. So they've got the fan fest and the meet and greets and the dinners and breakfasts and all that stuff. That developed over years to where they're at now. Back then, it wasn't. We were doing promos for the event itself, and I think we did one time. I think, Barry, did we not do a brief, like a press conference?
Yeah, we did a couple of those, but the one thing a lot of people wanted to meet us, and at the WrestleMania, like we met some Make-A-Wish kids or whatever we did, and then at the Trump Plaza, remember Trump and his wife wanted to get pictures with us.
Yeah.
So we're all in the dressing room down there, and all of a sudden a bunch of dogs come running into the building, and everybody's going, "What the heck's going on?" And the guys are hiding their pot and everything, thinking they're drug dogs or something, And then all of a sudden here comes, Trump with his wife, and then we got pictures with them. Then they took off and left again. But it was, every once in a while you get those pictures with some of the celebrities. But it's a big deal. It was a big deal.
Yeah, I can only imagine what that must have been like, because here you have, nobody knew that Donald Trump would go on to become what he's become, a 2-time president of the United States. But that was a big deal at that time, because in the late 1980s, throughout much of the early to mid 90s, Trump was everywhere on television. So that was as big as it got. And I don't remember if he was married to Ivana at that time or Marla Maples,
Yes,
but
it was Ivana.
It was Ivana. Yeah.
And I do remember it might have been that one that they had the first Slammies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where we were singing on stage and stuff like that. But I don't remember how many fans were there. So
but I have to ask you that. Now, both of you guys say, okay, we understand this is different than the territories. This is New York. This is entertainment. When they present you with Demolition, I don't care if you're heels or baby faces, you're still badass guys. When they come to you and say, all right, we want you to be on stage and singing a song. Is there a party? I know you're good company men, you're businessmen, but there's got to be a party that's like, this is bullshit, right?
No, I think everybody enjoyed that part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was a little break. Like you say, there's a lot of tension. You want to do the best you can do, and there's a lot of tension everywhere, because it could be a make or break for some people.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were confident that our ability was going to stand out, but there's a lot of guys there that they're sweating bullets.
Yeah,
so
they all had to be pretty thankful that I didn't sing out loud, because that would have been a brutal. They would have cut that record right off if I would have sang loud.
Yeah, well, you have shown that you do have a knack for comedy and being able to portray any character you want. And again, now from WrestleMania 6 to WrestleMania 7, a whole lot transpires. You guys lose the tag team championships at that year's SummerSlam to the Hart Foundation in an incredible match. Another one that I think stands the test of time as far as young wrestlers in the business, especially tag teams. That's a match to be studied, and we'll probably dedicate a whole episode to that one. But I do want to talk to Barry Demolition Smash for just 1 second, because I've heard very different stories about WrestleMania 7. And that was when you and Crush, and again, a lot to get to there on future episodes, battled Tenryu and Kitao And it was a very quick match that I know even at the time, a lot of fans were like, what the hell just happened? Why did this match end so quickly? But I've heard through the years that it was actually being used to further a program you were working with them in Japan. Can you elaborate on that at all?
Well, at that time, that was when Bill was sick. And it was going to end up being where there was no longer going to be Demolition. Crush was going to be Crushed, and I didn't know what I was going to be or whatever. And I don't know what the whole situation was, but they were pushing those two guys in Japan. And really, they came to us and just said, can you guys just have a good quick match with them and get a win? Because they needed to get over in Japan.
Gotcha.
And then maybe if something worked out later, then you guys could go. But we knew that wasn't going to happen. So that's how that match went. And we wanted to have a really good match. And we had probably, 15 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes. And then you get going out there and then they go, oh yeah, you got 7 minutes or something like that. So then all of a sudden
I don't think a lot of fans realize that when you guys get told 12 to 15 minutes, that's not in ring bell to bell. That's from when the music hits, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's when you're, that whole segment is 15 minutes. So now when all of a sudden the whole segment's 7 minutes or 8 minutes, now you only got about 5 minutes, 4 minutes in the ring. So what do? You got to get them over. And they do that on purpose to make it so, you can't get all your shit in, it makes them look better. But it was really hard not being with Bill. And I loved Crush and everything, but the team wasn't the same, and knowing that we weren't even going to be around, it was, it was a tough deal.
Well, on future episodes, I definitely want to break all of that down because that whole dynamic, I mean, especially me as a young fan here on the East Coast, Northeast area, I wasn't familiar with the quote unquote free bird rule. So when that got brought into WWE as Bill was making his exit from the team, which again, we're going to get into that on a future episode, it was very interesting. And I was hoping to see a variation of Demolition stick around, especially with the Legion of Doom, Road Warriors now involved in WWE. But there was a lot of stuff that went on. And listen, WrestleMania, I think we can all agree, it's everything, every cliche that they've thrown at us, it lives up to. The biggest stage of them all, the granddaddy of them all. And you guys were such a huge part of, 4, 5, and 6. And yes, then eventually 7. Going into it now, I know for WrestleMania weekend, you guys are going to be in Las Vegas, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
We'll be out there for. What you're doing?
We'll be out there for 2 days, and we'll be signing at the WrestleCon. So
great.
I encourage all the fans to come out and chat with us, and they always have some memories and some good stories to tell us and relate to us. So, and jot them down and send them in.
Absolutely.
We'll answer them here.
Yeah, we're gonna be signing on Friday and Saturday.
Perfect. You guys looking to hit? You're gonna hit the tables a little bit afterwards, have a little fun. You're gonna make a little vacation out of it, or is it all business?
Look for something good to eat, and maybe a show. That's about
there
it.
You go. There you go.
I'm actually going a couple of days early with the wife, and I'm going to go see the Grand Canyon for the first time. So
awesome.
So I'm pretty excited. Yeah.
Because that's something that I don't think people realize either. I mean, you guys have literally been all over the world, but there's so many amazing sites that when you were running that style, that lifestyle, and constantly go, so many great things you never got the chance to see. And nowadays with these conventions and traveling, you're getting those opportunities. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big history buff, so anytime I can catch up on some local history, I take advantage of it.
I love it. Well, don't forget, for WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas, Axe and Smash Demolition will be appearing at WrestleCon. They're going to be doing some autographs. You can check them out on Instagram at Search and Destroy You. I'm on Instagram at Ryan Maher Comedy. And our producer, Dan, who's doing a great job putting this together, he's going to flash across the screen right now where you can submit your questions for future Demolition podcasts. We're going to be introducing a segment called the Demo Dozen, where we're going to be taking questions probably 12 an episode. And then down the line, we're going to be introducing different ways that you can be interactive with this podcast as a fan. And I'm really looking forward to that. But right now, going into WrestleMania, I'm excited as a fan. We got new WWE Legends official. They already were, but now it's official, recognized by the company. They're going to be out there WrestleMania weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. You guys have anything else you want to add before we get out of here tonight?
No, it's always good to talk to the fans, so send those questions in, and if you're in the Las Vegas area, stop by and see us.
Definitely.
Yep, for sure. And plus, we got to put over Tommy Fierro again, 80swrestlingcon.com, right?
Of course.
And I mean, he's the best. He's actually our manager now, you know?
I love that.
Yeah.
And you know what? You guys are in great hands with Tommy. Like I said, I've been involved in different aspects of the business for over 20 years, and Tommy was really able during the pandemic, along with the help of working with guys like you, to really reinvigorate my passion for this. And he's the main reason why this podcast is happening right now too. So I'm very excited to be working with Tommy closely, and this is just going to go and onward and upward and get bigger and better. And I'm looking forward to it. But we need the fans' interaction. We need them to spread the word, share it, be interactive with this podcast, and onward and upward is where we go. Guys, this was a lot of fun, taking a trip down memory lane, talking about WrestleMania. We got a lot of great episodes coming up, different things we're going to be discussing. And again, send those questions in. That's Axe and Smash. I'm Ryan Maher. Have a great night, guys.
Thank you, guys.